You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a wash machine.
Fonte with a scooping header.
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot. Oh my word.
Unbelievable. We ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast and newsletter dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans, and available right here on southamptondelivery.com. My name is Matt Markstone. I am the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thanks for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it. And in the intro, you heard Ralph say, either we win or we learn. And I think we definitely learned some things over the past couple of weeks. I think we've learned that we've been seemingly lucky to get away with some of the selections that Ralph has made when you think back to both Manchester and Sheffield United. And I don't think we got away with it quite on Friday night when Bournemouth came to town and got their first ever Premier League win at St. Mary's. So a lot to be desired from the performance, especially in the first half, a better second half, but not enough to get the points. And to be honest, if we go forward, and tomorrow night or tonight, as you're listening, we manage to take care of business down the other side of the M27. I think I'll be forgiven. But Ralph has said now in the press conference that he will choose his strongest team. We'll have to see who that is. And to kind of talk about all of that this week, I am joined by Matt Beling. Matt does the logo for the show. He used to be the guy behind the We Are Southampton page on Instagram, has been a partner of the show for a long time. He's put that page on hiatus, but Matt is still a good friend and a pleasure to talk to him as always. The last time you heard from him is episode 100, so there's some of you on here who have not heard from him, but you've missed out so far. So this is your chance to kind of catch up with him. So let's get to our discussion. And once again, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you on the other side. I'd like to welcome back to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Matt Beling. You can find him on Twitter at WeSouthampton. He's the guy who does the logo for the show, and he's been around since before the show was even a thing, and he was last on episode 100. So it's been way too long, Matt, but thanks for coming back on the show, and welcome back.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, it has been way too long, but thanks for having me back.
No, it's my pleasure. And yeah, it's always good to catch up and talk, and we've been kind of chatting here for a little bit, but unfortunately, we don't have the best news to talk about in terms of Saints' performances, at least in the first half, and I think this might be the first time that Ralph comes in for some criticism really on the show, and I kind of, you could kind of feel it creeping in, I think, the last couple of weeks in terms of some of the selections he's made, but I think this time this might be the one where we just have to say it out loud, and we'll see. So anyway, how are things with you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, I've had a bit of job change, but in general, everything's going great, and still trying to follow the team as much as I can around London. So yeah, all good, thanks. Yeah,
and people might remember you from the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. Mm-hmm. That was the page you used to do competitions and everything else, and that's kind of where I met you, and now you've kind of not retired it, but you've put it on hiatus for a while. But you're busy and you're working, and that's that's what it's all about. So I guess do you want to just jump in and take a look at the team selection, and because we're going to talk about the Bournemouth match obviously for a little bit, and then there's obviously a match the day this comes out. This could be out Tuesday morning, so people will get this just ahead of the trip down the road, and obviously I guess we should talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Even though my son, we were talking, wasn't alive the last time we beat them, so it's been a while.
Absolutely crazy. Yeah, absolutely crazy. It's been a while.
So I mean, Bournemouth coming to town. You were there at the stadium on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sort of for the rivalry they claim it is, added security, a bubble, anything like that, fist fights outside the stadium. Were you able to make it in the ground safely?
Oh yeah, I made sure I was well dressed, suited for the occasion. But you know what? There was absolutely nothing like on the way into the ground. So this rivalry that they keep talking about is just non-existent. Every opportunity they have to make it one, they just refuse to. They can mouth off on Twitter, but it doesn't seem to actually translate to their fans. So yeah, interesting. There wasn't too much atmosphere outside the ground before the game.
Yeah, I mean, even Freddie from the Ugly Inside on the preview show was like, yeah, come down to the Five Rivers pub. Like, we'll all have a couple of pints together before the game. Like, it'll be okay. And their presenter was like, no. Like, we want it to be a rivalry. And Freddie's like, no, just come over here and have a beer. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it's never going to happen, I don't think.
No. And obviously, I think the fact that I didn't hear anything discussed in terms of, added security or words of wisdom for their fans coming into Southampton or anything. Nothing like, where, I was a little surprised that there isn't kind of added security, or it isn't like, the bubble's not being implemented for Tuesday's match. But I think that shows you the difference. The fact that it was seriously considered, and the club has come out and made a statement about, removing stuff from your car if you're going to drive in and not wearing your shirt outside and things like that. Like, yeah, there's a huge difference between the way that these two things are going. So we'll see, but not a lot of atmosphere outside, but it sounded like it was decent inside, at least from the TV coverage. Friday night, I think night games are always a little bit different. I think they have the ability or the chance to be kind of maybe more intense under the lights, but sometimes I think midweek they can tail off a little bit. But just starting with the team news, I mean, when you saw, again, kind of a weird looking team sheet, were you at all concerned, or did you kind of have an idea where people would play, or what were your thoughts on it?
My initial glance at it, I was fairly satisfied with it, because I saw obviously Redmond was back and Danso was back, and then I started to try and work out in my head, and I was like, okay, it's nice to have them back, but where are they playing? Obviously they got 3 centre backs on the team sheet and 1 right back. It just seemed like a little off balance, but I think maybe because of the names on the team sheet initially, I was fairly satisfied with it. So I didn't really know how it was going to play out in terms of where they would line up on the pitch. Yeah,
I was thinking Buffal at left wing back, that's going to be fine. We'll just, but luckily, or maybe not luckily, that's not how it worked out. I think the way they lined up initially, it wound up being a back 4 with Cedric at left back and Danzo at right back, meaning now he's played both center back, or all of center back, left back, and right back for the team. And I'm not sure how that worked out. And then ahead of them, obviously, it was Romeu and Højbjerg, and then JWP and Buffal, and then up top, Adams and Redmond, I think. I'll be honest, everybody's kind of running everywhere, and I was watching kind of as the kids were trying to take a test. And so I was watching as much as I could without getting myself in trouble.
Yeah, it was just a real strange one once I saw the lineup, and when I saw they were lined up on the pitch, because obviously Danso's a centre back and he's playing out of position at left back, and at right back, and then you've got Cedric, who's a natural right back, playing at left back. It just it seemed to make no sense, especially when you consider how well Yoshida played against Sheffield United, just to drop him to the bench in place of Danso, who just walked straight back into the team after his red card against Manchester United. It seems very strange in terms of the selection. And I'm not sure why those players were picked, but yeah, the first half obviously provided enough evidence as to why it won't work again.
I am really hoping that we haven't found Hasenhutl's version of Wesley Hoot, where Danzo just continues to play all the time if he's not up for it. And I don't think that's the case. I think he's definitely a competent footballer. I'm just not sure where he's going to play unless he replaces maybe Vestergaard. But I don't know. I don't think people were really upset with Vestergaard, but I don't think Vestergaard was as terrible as people thought.
No. I think he had a fairly solid game. I think it was purely down to the formation in the first half that really caused most of the problem.
Yeah. And you just hope it kind of works itself out, and you hope we figure out what's going on with Birch. I mean, Valerie wasn't even on the bench. I mean, there's a lot of questions that I have about things, but obviously we don't have we probably don't have the answers either. So I guess we'll just we'll try to work it out. But it is what it is, and we'll go. So, I mean, the starting formation we talked about, kind of Adams up front, kind of on his own, or maybe with Redmond kind of there. And Adams looked up for it. It just, I don't know. It didn't really come off right away. It seemed like the formation was definitely causing us problems, but I don't know. I didn't really feel like we were under it a lot until Bournemouth scored. I felt like that kind of almost came out of nowhere. But what were your kind of thoughts leading up to their goal? What was it, 10 minutes in or 15 minutes in?
Yeah, to be honest, I thought we started fairly brightly. I think the way that Bournemouth lined up with quite an attacking lineup, they had Josh King, both the Wilsons, and obviously, who am I missing? There was another striker.
Solanke?
Yeah, Solanke. So they obviously lined up in pretty much a 4-4-2 formation with King and Wilson on the wing. So it was pretty offensive from them. And I think we just struggled to deal with the pace they had on the break, because every time we'd come forward, and we had a couple of chances in the first 10 minutes to get an early goal. I think James Ward-Prowse had a good chance that just went wide. And after we didn't get the breakthrough early on, I think Bournemouth just settled into their pattern, into their rhythm from their win last week. And I think they just became more and more comfortable with the situation. And yeah, it was from there that it was quite difficult to contend with them.
Yeah, I mean, down our left with, you talk about JWP's kind of chance to win just wide. It came from, I think Boufal had a cross that got blocked. It goes out for a throw in. He winds up kind of almost backheeling it to Cedric, who sends the ball in, and you can see what Ward-Prowse is trying to do, just kind of trying to flick it to the far corner, and he just doesn't get enough on it. But I mean, that was a legitimate chance. We had guys in the box. We had a cross come in, and to see Cedric and Boufal, we're so used to seeing Redmond and Bertrand down the left, to have a completely different, set of guys going down that side. I thought it was nice to see them kind of get forward and do that. And we'll talk about Boufal, I'm sure, as the game goes on, but I was really impressed with him the whole game. Just tackling back and also the creativity and also just not making it so, not overcomplicating it, I guess, but leading to up to their goal. I mean, Romeu has been so good and was good in this game, but just on that set piece, he just did not do enough. He didn't do enough to. Ake just gets wrong side of him, out jumps him. Danzo can't get to the ball because I think he's being kind of shoved in the back by somebody else. And Ake gets up there, and as soon as he gets his head to it, there's no chance that Gunn's going to keep that out of the goal.
No, yeah, it was strange, because you would think with the height that we have at the back, we would be able to contend with people like Ake and their centre backs, because they're a lot taller. Like Ake's, I think, like 5'9", and he's winning a header uncontested against Romeu. It seems like a bit of naivety not to mark one of their most dangerous centre backs. I know he's not that tall, but he's got a track history of scoring quite a lot of headers. So I think that was either a miscommunication, or somebody didn't pick him up, or maybe Romeu wasn't supposed to pick him up. But either way, it was a really soft goal to concede so early in the game.
Yeah, and you can kind of see where they're lining up. There's I think 3 or 4 of them kind of push more out towards the top of the 18-yard box, and they all start kind of running in to get ahead of steam, and they're just all attacking where they want, where the ball is supposed to be, and Romeu just can't get there, doesn't do enough, and it's disappointing. And at that point, you're kind of like, oh no, but we haven't scored a first half goal all season, and so the idea that we're somehow going to magically break out of it and do that, it didn't work, didn't happen, and then we just seemed to kind of go, almost to sleep from there until about 25 minutes in, we wind up having to switch formations, but not until King would have made it 2, but he was just offside, and so VAR comes to save us again.
Yeah, that was a weird one in the ground, because obviously I hadn't been at St Mary's for a VAR check this season yet, and obviously the Bournemouth fans went crazy once the goal went in, and from where I was standing, which was like right next to the away fans pretty much, there didn't look to be anything wrong with the goal. So when it went to VAR, I was pretty surprised. And then I've watched it back since, and it was the most minimal amount of, I don't know how far offside it actually was, but it can't have been more than a foot. And very lucky to get away with that one, actually.
Yeah, I would say that's, it's not the first time we've had the benefit of VAR kind of doing it. And granted, the decision is correct that he was offside, but you would have normally, I think the linesmen tend to give the advantage to the attacking team, which is, I think, what we all want to see, unless our team is defending. But in terms of just watching football, you want chances, and so if he doesn't get it, and I'll be honest, I had I had both of the Bournemouth strikers in my fantasy team until this week, and I didn't want both of them. I chose to get rid of Wilson, and so I had King, and so I was like, well, if it's going to happen, like at least it's King, and then no, it doesn't happen. So, so I mean, I was happy that the goal got chalked off, but at the same time, the fantasy team is suffering, but it's not just him. It's okay. All of it. So it's okay.
Well, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad Bournemouth did you some favors then.
Yeah, seriously. Anyway, about 25 or 26 minutes in, I think it was very clear that Danzo down the right was not working. And so we see another kind of mid-game shift, and Lucy, Lucy Hennett was on last week, as it talked about several times, like Ralph's ability to change formations and make adjustments in game is great when he's watching it all. But somehow the starting lineup comes under criticism over and over and over. But 26 minutes in, we switch to a back three. Danzo goes to the center. Cedric stays at left wing back. JWP goes back to right wing back. And I thought actually, like, James Ward-Prowse was more involved then. He seemed to be going forward from there. And of course, we wound up switching formations after the second half as well, or in the second half as well. But I think Ward-Prowse had another shot go over the bar. He maybe could have played in Romeu. Anything else in the first half kind of stand out to you as a real kind of key defining moment, or anything you think deserves maybe some recognition or some criticism?
To be honest, we didn't create all that much in the first half. I know there were a couple of chances. I think Højbjerg had one in on goal and the keeper makes a good save from close range. But ultimately, I don't think we created enough in the first half to justify scoring a goal. So, Buffal did make some good runs, putting some dangerous balls into the box. But ultimately, there was no one to get on the end of it. I think the problem in the first half was Bournemouth was such a threat on the break that every time we came forwards, it was only Che Adams in the box to get on the end of these balls. And I think, if he's not getting on the end of them, which he wasn't, the ball just ends up being cleared, and then you're on the back foot straight away. And with a shaky defence, which it was, with players playing out of position, I think it just leaves you so vulnerable. And also, we got caught out so many times in that first half, and it could have been 3 or 4 nil at half time. So, I think we were quite lucky to only go in at 2-0. So,
I mean, granted, I'm talking full match stats, and I think a lot of our chances came in the second half, but I think a lot of our chances in the first half came from us shooting from outside the area. We were willing to take shots and kind of maybe hope for a deflection or, cause some sort of havoc, but a lot of the shots just got blocked. Like we never created the space to be able to get the shots away. And so Buffal and Ward-Prowse or Højbjerg or whoever's shooting from the edge of the area, and they're just getting blocked. And maybe that's what we want. Maybe the chaos is what we're hoping, and we're hoping somebody comes out and makes a mistake and we can capitalize, but it just didn't quite happen. By the end of the game, we had 23 shots. I mean, but the second half was, I think, a completely different game. We just couldn't do it. But Harry Wilson did make it 2-0 in the 36th minute. And I thought that was just kind of poor from us. Like I can't remember if it was King who had the ball out wide and then, or who made the run down the wing from him, I think inside of him, and, just cut it back, and Wilson was there, and it was a good finish from him. But, you would hope that we would do a little bit better defending down that side. And I don't know, it was kind of, once that all happens, it's, judging from the way we were playing, I wasn't really sure we were going to be able to get back into it.
No, it was, the goal was almost a carbon copy of the one that got ruled out via VAR. I think it was Josh King doing the damage down the wing, and rather than him going in on goal, I think we had more players in the box this time, and Harry Wilson was on the end of a good pullback. So and after that we just didn't get back into the game before half time, and thankfully things changed a bit at half time. But that first half was probably one of the worst I can remember in a very long time. I don't know whether it was purely down to Ralph's team selection or whether players have just taken their eye off the ball a little bit with Tuesday in mind. Yeah,
I mean, pausing to talk about that at this point, I think is fine. Do you think that's a real possibility? Do you think, because on one hand, I kind of want the players to know, you have that game coming, but as somebody who's played sports, you have to take it one game at a time, and you try to concentrate on the game that's in front of you. But with that game coming up and us, the fans, kind of being as adamant as we are that we win that game, there's no way they don't know that game's happening just in a few days,
Yeah, right. I think, if the players are anything like the fans, they've obviously had the Portsmouth game on, in their minds for like a while now. I think that that was made like a month ago, and so everyone's had time to come to terms with it happening and making plans for it. So there's no way that the players aren't distracted by it. Whether that's the main reason for the loss against Bournemouth, probably not. But maybe one or two players, the ones that were actually mean something to, maybe James Ward-Prowse and a couple of others, maybe they just weren't playing quite to their full potential. Maybe they don't want to risk getting injured and missing that game, or it might just be in their heads a little bit more than people think.
Yeah, I mean, granted, we lost the game against Bournemouth already, but we have to win. We have to win on Tuesday. Like it has to happen, and so I hope the players are up for it, and I hope they realize that they got to play better than that. I don't care what league Portsmouth are in right now. Like you would imagine that they have nothing to lose in this game. They're supposed to lose this game. I think all the pressure's on Southampton, which is not what I want. I would rather always be the underdog, but I think you just have to go there and just establish yourself and beat them. But anyway, I thought the last 5 minutes of the first half maybe were a little bit better. I thought that our pressing was starting to click a little bit more, and they were having more trouble playing through the press. Bournemouth was, and the problem was we couldn't create really any opportunities from it. And Karolinka for The Athletic has written a couple of things, and a lot of what it is our willingness to kind of send the ball long and kind of allow their center backs to like knot it down into the midfield where we can kind of contest the ball and hope to win it a little bit higher up the pitch. And I think if with that in mind, I'm definitely thinking about that as I'm watching the game. And it seemed that was like Vestergaard and Bednarek have no problem just lumping it forward and letting basically Romeu and Højbjerg just go to war. And I think that's what I like seeing it. I think they are up for it. They don't seem to shy away from the tackles very often. So I thought it was a little bit better, but we just couldn't, like you said, couldn't create any real chances, and we go in down 2-0.
Yeah, I think Romeu and Højbjerg were probably the strongest players in the first half. I think Romeu's been really good all season. I think he's really stepped up his game this season. And I think maybe by the end of the first half, we had kind of created a bit of momentum. But obviously, when you're going in 2-0 down, the task ahead of you at that point. So I think Ralph must have had some stern words at half time. And I guess they must have worked a little bit when they came back out. Sure.
And it was pointed out on the TV coverage here, like you can change the tactics and hopefully you create a few more kind of clear-cut opportunities out of them, and you make the players feel a little bit more comfortable. But really, the tactics had very little to do with either of the goals we conceded early on, or any of the three, really. It was a set piece where we didn't mark somebody. It was just kind of just poor defending, letting the guy run kind of through you, and not picking a player up in the box for the second. And then the third, we will just leave to the end because it makes me sad. But I mean, we back to a back four now. Bertrand on the pitch, Danzo off, fullbacks playing on their proper sides. And we just looked, the second half was a lot better. It was a lot of us going forward and not a lot of clear cut opportunities. I think VAR saved us a little bit again, but overall, it kind of I think Ward-Prowse had a couple of chances that went over the bar. I don't know. I thought we had a lot of chances, just not any of them seemed to go in. And their keeper had a hell of a day as well. He made plenty of saves and looked pretty good. So I mean, it kind of just feels like bad luck almost.
Yeah, we got into a lot of good positions second half. I think Boufal penetrating on the wing with Redmond as well. It's just a shame that we just couldn't get the service that Che Adams obviously needs. I think he's a striker who will feed off really good deliveries and really good service. But I think the way the game was set up, obviously we had to chase it in the second half. So I think we just had to try and get the ball forward as quick as possible. And we had some chances. I don't think Che Adams had many good chances in the second half before he was replaced by Ings. But I think, ultimately, I think you can only credit Bournemouth with defending really well. And the keeper did have a great day and make some good saves towards the end to save a point for them.
Did you do you play fantasy Premier League?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Did you see who was winning the league or the highest points total at the end of, I think, Friday night?
No, I have no idea.
I don't know who it was, but it was somebody who had captained James Ward-Prowse.
Seriously?
And then vice captained the Bournemouth keeper. And it was just like, what are you doing?
Crazy.
And how do you win this? You have to be last place in every league ever until today, and he triple captained Ward-Prowse. No joke.
What? Wow, that's mad.
I was beyond shocked. And I am not a fantasy Premier League genius by any means. I'm 100% guilty of watching a couple of YouTube channels and just going like, that sounds really good, and doing it. It's not worked out well. I had Sterling captained yesterday, so it's
I think a lot of people did that, to be honest.
yeah. Anyway, back to, I guess, our stuff. But when we get the penalty, I guess the ball initially to Adams from Højbjerg is great. Adams' first touch is great, and he just runs immediately. Kind of, you can see him just trying to get inside the penalty area and trying to drive towards goal. And Cook's challenge isn't great. We get the penalty. Ward-Prowse buries it, and at that point, you can start to hear the fans again. And you know, and I never really heard the Bournemouth fans. I don't know, you were there. Were the Bournemouth fans very loud, or was it they were just kind of out enjoying the evening?
I mean, they were a lot louder than we were. I think obviously that's just a result of being 2-0 up and having a couple of, you're just having a decent day at the office, I guess. But I think compared to our fans, they were enjoying it a lot more, so making more noise. Yeah. Okay.
I thought that, at least and once again, it's all TV coverage and where the mics are and everything else. But once we scored, it seemed that our fans were much, much louder and kind of getting back into it. And I think that we felt some momentum kind of coming around, We looked a lot better. We were creating a lot more chances. We had a lot of shots on goal. And I think the feeling was there that we could potentially get back into it now that we had a goal.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we hadn't lost to Bournemouth at St Mary's since ever, I don't think. So
yeah.
I think there was some kind of feeling that once we got one back, we were like, oh, they're going to start to drop off here maybe, and maybe we can pick up a point when we don't deserve one. But yeah, it didn't end up that way, but we did come close towards the end to nicking a point. So
yeah. I guess the other thing we should talk about was, we could go through all the shots, but there's 23 of them. I don't think we need to discuss every single one.
Right.
I think another big decision though, and I'm not sure where you stand on or where you were in terms of what you saw, but we had gotten the penalty from Cook's challenge on Adams, and then Cedric's challenge, I think on Wilson.
It was him or Josh King, I think.
Cannot remember. Oh, it's King because I made a joke about it on Twitter. I said VAR is King and Josh is not, or something like that.
Nice.
I'm just embracing the dad joke. It's just easier.
Doing it well.
So anyway, obviously that doesn't get given, and then it goes to a VAR check, and I thought for sure they were going to get it. I'm not sure if you've seen a replay or not, but what did you think about that in the moment?
Yeah, in the ground, it felt like it was a penalty. I think because ours seemed quite soft, I was quite surprised when it wasn't overturned by VAR. And then obviously they had the goal ruled out in the first half with VAR, and I thought it would just balance out and that one would get given. But from where I was standing, it looked like a penalty, so I was quite surprised that it wasn't one. But I haven't seen it back since, so I'm not sure whether it was or wasn't really.
And then I think it was pointed out several times, if it had been given on the field, it wasn't going to be overturned. And the same thing goes the opposite way with ours. If it wasn't given on the field, they weren't going to make it a penalty. It was the Premier League seems to be doing, I think, the right thing, and it's got to be clear and obvious. Had they really seen Cedric just completely took him off his feet with a slide tackle that everybody somehow missed, then they're going to turn it over. But it's one of those 50-50 calls, and it doesn't go. But I also wrote here that I would have been upset had it been the other way around. If the calls had been reversed and we didn't get it and they did get it, I'd probably be fairly irritated given, the way the game went in the second half.
Yeah, I think it actually balanced out kind of well for both sides. I think Bournemouth would have obviously felt the opposite way had they had the goal ruled out and then have the penalty given, but then not get a result from the game. So I think, VAR is kind of strange in that sense that you still feel a little bit robbed by it because you don't see it in the stadium. So yeah, it's obviously fail safe now and you can't really argue with it. But at the time, I was very surprised that one didn't get given, just purely from what I saw from my angle. But obviously there's more to it than what you see in the stadium. So yeah.
I am trying to remember the exact name of the guy. It's Diego Rico, I think. Is that him?
I think that's his name. Yeah.
I don't like him.
No, I don't think many people do actually after that game.
Not a fan. I wrote some horrible things that I won't repeat. on here about him, but him and Cedric got into a little bit, and he seemed to be, as much as I can hate him, he was involved a lot, and he did damage us a little bit in the first half, just kind of breaking up play and going forward. But the tangle between him and Cedric, it was nice to see Cedric with a little bit of fire in him, but getting over his face and kind of telling him whatever he told him, something about not going down that easily or whatever it was. But I'm not a fan of that guy, and I hope obviously we won't see him until we'll only see him one more time this season. But not a huge fan. But I don't know. Coming down kind of towards the end of the game, we were pressing for a goal, and Bournemouth had chances going the other way on the counterattack because they have so much pace up front. They brought Fraser on, I think, and they were there. And I hadn't seen much of Callum Wilson around all evening. It seemed to be kind of hit and miss, and if he was in, it seemed like King was more involved down the wing than Wilson was through the center. But Ings comes on, and he has a shot, and I thought that was the shot that was going to be. I thought that was going to be it. I thought Redmond had a shot at kind of the far post. I think it was a cross or a corner that went all the way through. That you just had players diving in front of him to get something on it, and it managed to be deflected. I thought Ings had an opportunity, and then I think Ward-Prowse had one other one. I'm not exactly sure when it happened, but it just seemed to be, the ball just seemed to be loose there forever, and we just couldn't get it in the back of the net.
Yeah, we had countless opportunities towards the end, and it's just a combination of the efforts not being good enough to beat the keeper, and the keeper just having a really good day at the office and making some really big saves at the end. I think the one that denied Buffal right at the very end was a really good save, and that was probably the best chance we had after the equaliser to get after the penalty, to get an equaliser, and it just wasn't to be. And obviously, I'll let you talk about that last goal because I don't want to.
Yeah, no kidding. I just was going to point out we only had 2 shots inside the 6-yard area. All of our other shots, were obviously outside, and a lot of them, I think it was pretty even split between those that happened inside the penalty area at all, and then those who that were from outside. But the game ends. I mean, it's so close to the end, and it's basically we have one last attack, and then they just decide to just punt it long, and the ball is allowed to bounce, which I've not played at a very high level. I won't pretend to know everything about playing defense, but I know that as a defender, if you let the ball bounce, like, bad things happen. And so the ball bounces, and then it's over, because Vestergaard was forward, so it was just Bednarak on Wilson, and then Bednarak turns to run, and there's just not enough communication. I don't know if he's not sure where he's at on the pitch, because if it's inside the area, obviously, then Gunn just grabs it and it's game over right there. But I have no idea. I mean, it just looked like such a mess, and that any kind of positive anything we can take from it just goes out the window at that point, because all the fans leave remembering that moment when we conceded, and then the score line looks terrible. Everybody's kind of upset, and I remember just like, I have somebody that shares a room with me, and by this point school was over, so I was watching, and I'm just, yelling curse words, and she's trying to talk to parents on the phone, and I'm not being considerate at all. But it was just it's a really frustrating way to end the game. Yeah, it really was. I don't know whose fault it was. I don't know if it was Gunn's fault for not shouting at Bednarek or vice versa, but I then watched it back on Match Today, and apparently it's always the keeper's fault in that situation. So maybe Bednarek should have got a call, and Gunn should have been out there to punch or head the ball away or clear it. Either way, it was a combination of errors, and Callum Wilson probably had the easiest goal that he'll ever score in his life. And I feel like there was an opportunity there for him to be a real villain and get down on his knees and just nod the ball in. Yeah. I feel like if he had done that on the line, that would have maybe sparked something of a rivalry between Bournemouth and Southampton. I think it was a perfect opportunity to hammer the nail in, but he decided not to, and I'm kind of grateful that he didn't, because that would have been humiliating for everyone. So it was humiliating anyway, but if he'd done that, that would have been, pretty bad. Yeah, and you could already see the conversation between Gunn and Bednarak before the ball was even in the net. They were already talking to each other and just going that was really terrible. And you're almost glad that happens as the last goal and not the first one, because if that's the first one, then I think it sets the tone for the entire game. But it's terrible either way. But yeah, I mean, I have down here that the first ever victory for Bournemouth at St. Mary's, and that's not great. I didn't want it to happen now. You would have thought they would have beaten us, under Pellegrino maybe, or, under Hughes, but instead it's under Hasenhüttl. And I think part of it has to go down to just a poor first half, or the majority of the first half, and maybe some of the team selection that he's there for. And I think this is one of the things I want to ask you is it time to, can we question Ralph now? Is the honeymoon period over? Because I think it's been long enough for that. But this is, I don't know. I don't know what's happening at training or whatever, but I think I see it as a mistake in terms of how he set the team up and his insistence on using Danzo out of position and the kind of refusal to start Bertrand, whether it's, if it's an injury, just say it's an injury and we'll all be okay. We'll all understand. But right now it seems like there is, and whether it's manufactured by the media or by us as fans or whatever it is, but it seems like there's a real kind of rift between the two. And I've been reluctant to say it, and I've been hesitant to kind of dive into it. But I think at this point you kind of look at it and go like, if he doesn't start on Tuesday, then there has to be an issue,
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously Ralph's a very opinionated guy. I think he obviously has his players that he favours week in, week out. Hence Dancer coming straight back into the team. I just think, I think there are just some players who he will choose to favour over others. I think it's very strange that Bertrand and Valerie have both been dropped from the team when they were starting every game pretty much for the last third of last season. So what the reasoning is for that, I'm not sure, because Valerie's not even been in the under-23 squad, so he's completely dropped off completely. I think there was some footage of him in the stands on Friday night. So it's strange. And whether these team selections are dictated by Ralph, or I know he's got a new number 2 now, and Danny Roll's gone back to Bayern Munich. It would be interesting to know how much of an impact Danny Roll was having on team selection, or whether it was purely Ralph. Because some of the latest squad selections have been very contentious, and I think it won't take long now for fans to be like, it doesn't take a genius to work out that Cedric shouldn't be playing out of position, or he shouldn't be playing Danso at left back or whatever. So I think if we don't get a good result against Portsmouth, which is anything other than a win on Tuesday, I think people will start questioning him, and I don't think they'll be wrong to either.
No, I think a lot of it comes down to I'm really, really wondering what happened with Valerie, especially. And Bertrand's interesting because Ralph said over the summer that either Targett or Bertrand can leave. Like one of the two can leave, and it didn't seem to matter which one did. You think Targett fits a lot of the profile that he wants in terms of age, and he's maybe slightly older than what Ralph is looking for, but he's closer at least. Bertrand's kind of an elder statesman. He's looked uninterested at times, even though he's one of my favorite players. I don't think it's wrong to say that. He's gone through in terms of being dropped from the England squad and all kinds of stuff like that. I'm not sure he deserved that, but it's what happened. And on top of that, he stays, and then he's kind of out of the team. Cedric comes back, and Højbjerg, there was that whole thing at the very beginning of the season where I think Højbjerg was giving an interview, I think during one of the preseason camps, and he kind of grabbed Cedric and said, this guy's ready to fight for his place. And he has been. He's been great. I think Cedric's been wonderful since he's come back into the team, and he's been willing to go out and play left back and right back and wherever he's sent, and he's been playing hard and doing good things and working hard. And so I think that's all great. You've seen the same with Buffal, but then you have this insistence on playing guys like Djenepo at left wing back or Danzo at left back and then right back, and it's like we have the players there, I think, to do a little bit of it, but then at the same time maybe we don't, because we were terrible last year defensively, and so maybe these guys don't deserve to play, and maybe Ralph sees these guys as being the best, or they can be the best. Maybe they just have time. They haven't had time to learn because it's not their normal position. But like you said, I think people will start to question Ralph relatively soon. And I think we have to, because granted, it took us till December last year to get to 10 points. And we're 1 win away from it now. So maybe we're overreacting a little bit, but I'd rather not have 10 points in December. I'd rather, and the next couple of fixtures aren't great. So,
no, they're not.
It's going to be interesting to see. And maybe the rotation that'll have to happen, I would hope it would be on Tuesday, but maybe the rotation that has to happen for Spurs, maybe that gives those guys a chance to kind of earn a spot, and maybe we'll see kind of maybe Valerie will play then, maybe Bertrand will play then. And then they'll have a chance to kind of earn some respect from Ralph again, I think.
Yeah, I think Ralph's come out and said he's playing his full strength team on Tuesday. So I think that will give everyone a good indication as to what he values or sees as his best 11. So it will be interesting to see which team he names. And you would expect it to be the same team against Spurs if that does turn out to be the case and it is his said best 11. So I think, now he's come out and said that, I think it'll answer a lot of questions.
I hope so. And I hope it's the right thing. I hope it works out for everybody in the long run. But we need to be better than we were in the first half, because I would say we're a decent team, but we're not good enough to overcome a 2-0 deficit at halftime. And I think it's been a long time since we won a game when we've been down 2-0 at any point, or down 2 goals at any point. I think the stats they flashed up were something awful in terms of how often we come back from that, which I guess goes against every announcer that says, 2-0 is the most dangerous scoreline, because it obviously is not if you're playing us.
No.
It's dangerous for us. But I don't know. You have anything else you'd like to add kind of on the game, or can we kind of jump to some of these listener questions and see where they take us?
Yeah, I think it's best just to brush that one under the carpet and just forget about it. Yeah.
Okay. I was really hoping for a better, I
know.
Bournemouth at home. It's, pat your little brother on the head, tell him good job, but you kicked his ass. Like, that's what you're hoping for.
Get all the fans pumped up for Tuesday. But
it didn't work. So we'll see what kind of mood maybe just piss all the fans off for Tuesday, and that'll be good too, because it's probably going to be hostile, I would imagine.
Very.
But we have a couple of questions from the Discord channel, which is just for the patrons of the show, and it's one of the benefits they get for supporting the show. In addition to that, they also get access to an extra podcast episode per month, and priority of having their questions answered. So I won't say the patron's name, because this was not a part of the question, but he said he saw a post on Facebook from someone who said, in response to a quote from Ralph, that said, a resounding win on Tuesday, or you can pack your bags, which I just think is a shocking kind of thing to say to a manager who was obviously very, very good and very competent, and is trying to make a difference, even if we don't necessarily agree with what's happening. I think we all want the same thing, but the same guy basically jokingly asks, if we don't get a resounding win on Tuesday, should Ralph pack his bags?
I mean, I actually had the same conversation with a mate of mine after the Bournemouth game, and we were saying, if he doesn't get a win from one of these 2 games, is it time to maybe not sack Ralph, but I think consider his position as a manager? Because I think one of the things that he said when he joined, he understood how big this Portsmouth game is, and also how important it is for Southampton to be the best team in its surroundings, on the South Coast. So I think, if you don't get your players pumped up, or if you're not going to tactically be perfect for these games, then what are you just lying to the fans by saying, by pretending that it's a big deal if you're just going to lose the games? But honestly, if we do lose against Portsmouth, I think a lot of fans will be, I don't think you'll hear the end of it for a very long time. Yeah, no,
I think if he makes a team selection like he did on Friday night for Tuesday night, and it doesn't work, I think he will. I think to this point, everybody has given him the reins and give him the key to the city. Do whatever you need to do. He's great, and I'm fully on that. And maybe we're guilty of giving him too much, but I think he's a brilliant manager. I really do, and I think we're fortunate to have him at the team, and also the work ethic that he has. I think I like everything about him, but I think that for the people who have lived and breathed Southampton Football Club for their entire lives, they don't want to be toyed with. They don't want it to be an experiment. They want results. And I think that's totally fine. I think they want the best 11 players on the pitch, and for the guys to go out and fight hard. And I think if they did that every single week and we were just not good enough, then I think there would be more understanding of that than picking the guys that you are, I guess, determined to make work in a system that isn't working. And so I think it's there, but obviously I don't really think it's time to sack him, but the question's going to flare up, and social media is that way, and people kind of knee-jerk reaction
and fire it out there, and that's their right. They can do that. So we will have to see kind of how everybody kind of I guess views Tuesday night, and if we win Tuesday night, does the rest of this just go away? Like, do we just we just brush Bournemouth aside and keep rolling on the league and that? But anyway, but let's move on from that. And another patron of the show, Kevin McGee, asks a question: who misses out if Boufal, Redmond, and Djenepo are all fit? So, I mean, you have only so many options up front. We looked pretty good kind of going forward. I guess the guys looked good individually. I think Boufal has come back and has been working his kind of butt off to stay in the team and get in the team, and I think he's done all right. But you have those three, and any formation you want, I guess. Who misses out for you?
That's a real tough question. I think you can make a good argument for all of them starting. Obviously, Djenepo's had a real impact in the first couple of games that he's featured in, 2 amazing goals. And then Boufal, since he's come back, has changed his attitude, changed his body language. Now he looks like a completely different player when he's on the ball. So, and then you've got Redmond, who last season was our best player by an absolute mile. So it's very tough to drop one. I think if I had to drop one for the game against Portsmouth, I would probably drop Djenepo. I don't think he has anything to prove in that game. I think he's already proved enough as to the current ability that he has, and I think he might get targeted by Portsmouth if he doesn't have his mentality right. And I think maybe because he's so new to English football and new to the team, I think it might be perhaps the wrong time to throw him into a game of that significance. So I'd probably go with Redmond and Boufal. I think Boufal's got the trickery to really make a difference against Portsmouth. And obviously Redmond's such a natural finisher, and he's got that speed that could really open up a defence.
Yeah, I think Djenepo's probably the one that has to sit, just because you think back to Sheffield, and early on he got bullied a little bit when he was playing left wing back. He was going down quite easily. He still seems a little bit frail, even though he showed me some strength that I wasn't sure he had to hold off that challenge on the goal. But I would imagine that the League One team that Portsmouth are, they're not going to be shy about leaving it in and coming in with the studs raised and things like that. I'd be surprised if they took caution around our players, and I'm not sure that Djenepo fits that kind of game. I think you need somebody who has some understanding, who's maybe played at the lower leagues, and I guess that doesn't necessarily qualify for Boufal. I guess that doesn't make him a prime candidate either. But I still think there's a large section of the Southampton fans that aren't a fan of Boufal, that aren't convinced by him. And I think for him to know that, I think he does, and for him to kind of be able to prove himself on this stage, I think would do a lot, because you have to just imagine both of those guys are going to be technically probably far beyond the defenders that they're going to face on Tuesday. It's just, can they survive the minefield that will be their holding midfielders and defenders trying to clean them out.
Exactly, and I think if say worse does come to worse and one of our players does get injured, it's like a really good option to have off the bench, to have Djenepo off the bench with that creativity and the pace, who could probably exploit Portsmouth late in the game if we are trailing or need a goal. So I think it probably is the best combination of players to play in that situation.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it has to be that way, and I would think you would need Ings to start as well. He didn't start on Friday night. I can imagine Adams starting as well. But I think you probably have to have Ward-Prowse in, just given the kind of but obviously Ralph isn't going to pick the team like this. But you think in terms of guys who understand the match and understand the significance, it's probably only Ward-Prowse and Ings maybe that really get it, that have been around for it, and so if they're not in from the start, that you have to think that those are two guys that should be. And then you have other guys that have been at the team long enough. You have to imagine Romeu will be up for this. Højbjerg will be up for this. Yeah. Gunn's kind of played at lower leagues, so he's probably understands the thing. And I mean, even for me, we were talking beforehand. It's been it's been since 2005 since we've beaten them. It's been since 2011 since we went there, I think. Is that right? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Yep.
So I mean, it's been a long time, and I wasn't watching the team last time we went there, and so it's been that long, and so it's hard to imagine. But even with all that said, I am fully invested. I tried to take the day off so I can watch it because it was going to be midday, and I was denied because we have a meeting. But I'm really pissed. And I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. I'm not sure if I just don't watch any of it, like turn off everything and just wait until I get home and then try to watch it and pretend like it's live, or if I just peek at the score. And I can only imagine if we go 1-0 down, like how unproductive I will be the rest of the meeting. If something happens, but I don't know. That's not probably appropriate talk for this, but I don't know. It's got to be a huge match, and he's got to be considering some of those guys who really have an understanding of this, and they have to go out and do it. They have to. You got to have guys with something to prove, I think. So yeah, I would probably go, if we go 4-2-2-2 or 4-2-2-2, probably has to be up top at least Ings and Adams, Redmond and James Ward-Prowse, Højbjerg and Romeo, like that has to be that way. The back four, it probably should be Vestergaard, Bednarak with Cedric and Bertrand on either side. But I think that's what I would pick, but I don't know. Or maybe you pick Danzo in for Vestergaard just because of the pace aspect and things like that, but I'm not sure Vestergaard deserves that.
No, I think I'd probably make one or two changes from that team, or maybe put Yoshida in the centre back, just as he's, the guy who's been there from the start, the guy who understands the team. But again, he might well contradict himself by then, if he's going to pick his strongest team, he can't be picking players who've been sat on the bench all season so far. So it is going to be interesting to see how he deals with having to balance the team now, not just with the talent, but also with players who understand the magnitude of the game. So, I think the team selection is going to be super interesting. And whether he does go two up front will be another big one, because obviously you would expect him to, against a team 2 divisions below, to go attacking and make sure you win the game. But I can also see him playing it safe, making sure they don't, make any stupid mistakes early on, and then think bring on some attacking players later on in the game to really compound, do some damage against Portsmouth. But I think the team selection is crucial to the result of the game.
Moving away from that just momentarily, we'll come back to it, of course, because I think it's on everybody's mind. But Justin Woodward, another one of the patrons, says we have kind of a really crap next 6 or 7 fixtures. And those fixtures, if you include Portsmouth, are Portsmouth, then Spurs away, Chelsea at home, Wolves away, Leicester City at home, Man City away, Everton, Arsenal, and then I guess it gets a little bit easier. That takes us basically through most of November. I mean, that's a rough run of fixtures. Plus, I mean, I think Leicester City are currently in 3rd, and I think it's too early to look at the table, but they've been playing decently. Wolves, I think, are going to be dangerous, even if they're not quite up to par in terms of where they were previously. But and Spurs seem to be spursing it up earlier than normal. But you would expect them to kind of maybe turn that around. But I mean, how worried are you over the course of the next couple of league fixtures in terms of where we're going to be by the end of November, maybe?
I can't say I'm worried yet. I think one bad result is kind of distracting everyone at the moment. I think that Bournemouth result was really a little bit out of the blue. I think we'd obviously kept a few clean sheets in a row away from home up until that game. Hadn't really lost heavily all season. And then you lose 3-1 to a team you should be beating, and then everyone starts to doubt how well you're actually playing this season.
Right.
I think I think we're going to struggle against some of the teams they're up against in the next 5 games. I think Tottenham will probably, try and pick themselves up against, after their loss against Leicester, and then obviously we have Chelsea, who aren't a bad team this season either, and then Man City at the beginning of November, and that one's going to be difficult to watch if they can repeat what they did at the weekend. So it's a tough run of fixtures, and hopefully we can pick up some wins there. I think there are some winnable games. but it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, and we always seem to do a little bit better when we have teams who want to keep the ball and who want to play a little bit. And I mean, if they have the quality of a Man City, that's different. But some of these other teams that maybe don't, specifically thinking about Chelsea, they have been decent this year, but not great, not flawless by any means. Of course, and I bet that will be the time when they decide to start Christian Pulisic, which will make me very angry. But I mean, if you look at our last 5 games, 2 wins, a draw, and 2 losses, I think that's probably about right. Obviously, if you then throw in the loss at the beginning of the season to Burnley, which I think if we had that to do over right now, I mean, if we played them tomorrow, I would expect it to go very differently. But that's maybe me being optimistic, but that's just me. So, all right, we have a couple of other questions. If you have a few minutes here, won't keep you too long. Hamilton, who is at Cosmic Wozniak, says, "Do we lack a true finisher?" And I think we talk about the 23 chances we created, 23 shots we had, I guess, against Bournemouth, and only scoring from the penalty spot. The XG is at 2, which means that a lot of the stuff that we had wasn't necessarily, I guess, great opportunities. But I mean, to have 23 shots and only have an XG of 2, I think some of the opportunities you're taking are speculative at best. But even so, do we lack a finisher? And I guess my answer to that would be just no. I think between Ings and Adams, I think once they get going, they're going to be fine. I think they will be the guys who can finish chances. I think we saw that with Ings last year. He was injured for a long period of time and still managed to really be, I wouldn't say clinical, but be a guy who can score goals. And I do think that some of the other guys lack that kind of natural ability to finish chances. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think the only striker to score in the league this season for us is Danny Ings. And I think maybe give it a couple more games, and if Che Adams hasn't scored a goal, I think people will start to get concerned that he was a waste of money. And I don't think that's the case. I think he's been super unlucky with some of the chances he's had in some of the games that we've played recently. I think once he starts, once he gets his first goal, I think he will, obviously, it will give him a lot of confidence and he'll start to score on a regular basis. But yeah, I think maybe if we had like one more striking option on the bench, I think that would be a huge benefit to the team. I think Danny Ings is a great striker, but I think he lacks an impact when he starts games. He hasn't got the pace to trouble defence. We don't really play to his strengths anymore, with pace on the counter attack. So I think maybe in January, if we're still struggling for goals, I think that's probably the only area I would look at to improve. I think he can definitely find a striker who's going to give us more options than perhaps Danny Ings can. Not that Danny Ings is past it, I'm not saying that at all, but I just don't think that Danny Ings and Che Adams will end up playing in the same team all that often. So it'll be interesting to see who gets or who has more goals by January, actually.
Yeah, it will be. And hopefully it's, more than one. But we will see. There is a guy we got rid of, Charlie Austin, who had some interesting things to say on the Stan Collymore's podcast. I don't know if you heard any of the clips that came out today or not.
Yeah, I actually listened to them like probably a half an hour before I came on here.
Okay. I mean, what did you make of that? Because that's interesting. And I'm actually, that's probably what I'm going to do after this is go listen to the entire episode. Even though it will probably just make me angry, but I'm going to probably listen to it anyway.
Right. Yeah. So I think I listened to about like a minute and a half, like snippet from the interview. And, he just comes off as like such an idiot. I think the way he describes his relationship with like Ralph is completely like blown out of proportion. I think he knew at the end of last season that he wasn't going to be here this season. I think it was all but confirmed, maybe not in person by Ralph, but I think it was pretty obvious, and he's made it seem as if he was, he's entitled to start every single game, and he was never that player for us. And I think for him to come out and say the things about Ralph and how unprofessional it was, like for him to exclude him from the team, I think it's kind of a little bit. He's just a little bit maybe bitter about dropping down a division or not being good enough to play for Southampton. I think that's just the reality of it, and I just don't think he's equipped to handle that.
Yeah. like you said, I'm pretty sure that everybody knew, me, you, the media team, that, you know, my mom, from me talking about it, that Charlie Austin was not going to start games for Southampton, and probably wasn't going to be around. And therefore, why would you take him on the preseason training? You know, you leave him behind to get a move away. You're kind of doing everybody a favor at that point. And so I'm not surprised. I don't know why Charlie Austin's surprised. You would think that he would be more in tune with this, but maybe, and this is me being completely rude and everything else, but maybe, you know, stop worrying about the horses for 10 minutes and like sort your career out. And then, and then you know, and then we're all on the same page. Now I can appreciate the fact that he maybe wanted Ralph to come to him in person and say, hey, this isn't working. You're not going to be here. Like, I understand that, because that's I guess some sort of sort of mutual respect maybe between professionals, but maybe other parts of that were gone long before that, and you can see that with Lamina and everything else, where it's not necessarily everybody's favorite. And I mean, Ralph was there when Cedric went on loan last season, and Cedric has made his way back in. So maybe if you're Charlie Austin and you're looking at the way Cedric's coming back and working, maybe you take an idea from him and just put your head down and work. But that didn't seem to happen from anybody's perspective. So no. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, he's not exactly banging in the goals for West Brom either. So I think that says a lot about his ability at the moment. Yeah.
And I mean, I guess at the same time, like, you know, this is the stuff that gets ratings and gets talked about. So look, here we are discussing this, even though I don't think really either of us really care that much about what Charlie Austin's doing at this point. So I don't wish him any ill will, you know, stay healthy and all that stuff, but also stop bad mouthing the team at every opportunity. The other questions we have from T. Bazant, it says, is Ralph overthinking when making his team selection? I think we discussed that. You know, maybe we didn't address that specifically, but it's definitely, there was something going on, and maybe there's just things we don't understand going on behind the scenes. But yeah, we'll see. I guess we'll really have the answer for that on Tuesday. If he does something weird with the team selection and he says this is the best team, then maybe yes, he really is just inside his own head, and he needs to just take a step back and just look at, you know, what works when it's on the pitch, because it's really clear, I think, for us, if you watch the match on Friday night, from first half to second half, and then even with the game against Sheffield last weekend, the difference between the team when guys get moved to their kind of at least semi-natural positions, kind of how that changes things, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I think, maybe he's just guilty of, exactly that, overthinking. I think we've obviously played pretty well in the last couple of weeks before this Bournemouth result, and maybe he was just looking to find out which other players could potentially work in the system that he was trialing, and he now knows that he can't play two of our four defenders out of position. I think obviously a result like Bournemouth, if that doesn't wake you up to perhaps making an oversight in team selection, then I don't think anything will. So you would hope that he can, you know, work from this Bournemouth result and really just have a clear idea as to what his starting 11 should be every week.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see. There's one other one from Southampton News Now. This is not really a question, more of an opinion. A left-footed fullback should start at on the left, and a right-footed fullback should start on the right. We looked a lot more balanced. I think it just confirms kind of what we've been kind of discussing, and we'll have to see kind of what Ralph decides to go with finally when it's time. I don't know. Is there anything else that you want to discuss or want to make sure we point out? I mean, I would assume you're not going to Portsmouth on Tuesday.
No, I'm not. No.
I am. I talked to a couple of people who are going, and I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I part of me says, like, if I was given the chance to go, I would definitely go, but I'm probably also semi-comfortable not going and just watching from afar and hoping that everybody survives.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I think only like 1,200 people got tickets in the end because the allocation was so small, but I'm perfectly happy watching it on TV. Actually, I think with the security and the risks that you have to take, or that will be in place on Tuesday night, I'm just not sure if it's going to be beneficial for the majority of the people that are going to go. I think a lot of the Portsmouth fans aren't going to be there just to watch the football. I think there's going to be a lot unseen violence, and I think it will really bring. I think it will really bring an eye to the fact that this derby should be taken seriously. I think it is probably one of the most vicious derbies in England, and I think I think this is going to be a game that isn't just remembered for what happens on the pitch.
I mean, I really hope it's not the case, but I am there with you. I think I wrote it even in the newsletter last week. Like I'm more worried about than anything else. I'm more worried about the safety of some of those people who are going down there, and that they can get to the ground, they can watch the game, they can be passionate and get home safely. And I am shocked a little bit that there's not really, the buses aren't going down, and it seems like if you're just going to allow Saints fans to drive their car up and park in the lot and walk in, I think that's a recipe for disaster. I think if you're going to allow Portsmouth fans to basically queue outside the train station and wait for Southampton fans to arrive, I think that's a really bad call. And I mean, here in the States, there were sometimes before Spurs moved, there was some issues between them and Arsenal lining up. I think it was a Saturday kickoff. It might have been the early kickoff. I'm not exactly sure, but they had, police out there and separating the fans. And there was a little bit of, kind of just having to separate with the horses and things like that, but nothing crazy, nothing like when you watch some of the stuff that happened in, I think, the early 90s and in the 80s and stuff, and maybe even the early 2000s, some of the videos that are there. It's I don't know. It turns my stomach a little bit to watch some of the stuff that happened. And I don't enjoy anything like that. So, I don't know. I almost had two girls come to blows at my AP World History class on Thursday morning, and that's enough excitement for me. And that was over one of them not contributing enough to the group project, which I find that's an admirable reason to call somebody out and maybe try to. I don't know what that student was going to do, but it was pretty scary for everybody involved because she was pretty pissed. But
well, if you skimp out on a group project, you've got to come in, haven't you? So. Yeah,
you gotta do it. But I seriously though, I do hope that everybody is safe, and that obviously I want us to win too. But I think the safety of everybody is good, and I don't want it to be 1-0. I don't know what you want, what you think. I don't want it 1-0 or 2-1. I want it to be a decent scoreline. And that's actually the last question I have for you. It says from Justin Woodward, who's one of the patrons of the show. He says, is it possible that we win this game by a 3-goal margin? What's your score prediction, I guess, for Tuesday night?
It's like super tough to predict. Obviously we haven't played them for so long, and the rivalry is probably more fierce now than it ever has been. I'm kind of nervous about it. I think obviously after this Bournemouth game, and whether the players are going to actually be up for it or not. I'm going to be optimistic and say like 2-0. I don't think it's going to be as convincing as people think it is. I don't think we're equipped to beat a team 3 or 4-0. I can't remember the last time we did that. And especially on the night against Portsmouth, I think it's a massive ask to keep a clean sheet and score more than 3-4 goals. So I'm going to play it optimistic. I'm going to go for a 2-0 and hopefully, there aren't too many complications and we just get the job done. That can be that. I think 2-0, everyone will be satisfied with that. Okay.
Their last 5 fixtures, are league fixtures at least, loss, draw, loss. They are playing pretty terribly. We laugh as they, fail to capitalize against 10 men or things like that, and they're not having a great time. But I think that there's a saying, at least in America, that when it comes time for a rivalry, that any kind of form or any kind of previous records for the season, like it all goes out the window, and anything can happen. And I'm not sure if people view things the same way in the UK or not, but this seems to be, it will be less about league position and everything else. And if Portsmouth lose 2-1 or 3-1 or whatever it is, 2-0, they will say, well, you should have beat us, and that's fine. They use that excuse all you want. But I think that they will definitely be up for it. They're going to come and want to win that game. And, that's the least you can ask for from your team. So as long as our team shows up and does it, I think obviously the quality of the players, our squad should be heads and tails above them, or head and shoulders above them, I guess is the proper saying. But like, it's, I don't know. I think winning by 3-goal margin, I'm not sure we'll get there. I could see it being 2-0. I could see it being 3-1. I'd probably take the 2-0 because I'd rather us keep a clean sheet and just kind of shut them out. But to have the second goal early in the second half and just put it out of reach and we'll just pass it around them, or just lump the ball forward and let Romeu just destroy people, I'd also take that all game. But yeah.
I think I'd rather predict there being a red card rather than the scoreline. I think there's guaranteed to be a couple of nasty tackles in that game, I think.
Yeah. I don't even know what website to go and check and see if there's the odds on a red card, but I'm sure there's something. But I also don't want a virus on my computer from going to any of those sites, so I will refrain from Googling it here. We'll just assume they'll be pretty high. But Matt, thanks for doing this. I mean, I had a lot of fun, even though the match we had to talk about wasn't great. There's still a lot going on at the club and a lot of good things happening, I think. And of course, the good things will happen if we win on Tuesday. Yeah,
definitely. It's almost a season-defining game. I know it's early in the season, but I think if you beat your rivals at any point in the season, it gives you a massive boost. So hopefully we get the job done against Portsmouth and we can carry that momentum into games against the difficult games against Spurs, Chelsea, and City. Yeah,
and I think just having like you said, the momentum and the knowing that we've kind of established ourselves as because this will buy the players and Ralph a lot in terms of a lot of leeway with the fans. If we get through this, if we don't, it'll be the opposite. I think people will lose a lot of respect, and you'll see the fans kind of turn, I think, on players and Ralph easily or pretty quickly if they do this. And I don't want to say easily because this is a big deal. This is you have to work with these people, and I don't know. I'm lucky that I will not have to deal with that. I don't think there's a single Portsmouth fan that lives here that I know of. So that's great. I know a Hull City fan. I do not know any Portsmouth fans.
Okay.
So, that's it. That's all I got. But thank you so much for doing this. And if people want to get in touch with you on Twitter, they can do that. It's just at @WeSouthampton. Yeah, man, it's been great. And thanks for everything you've done for the show. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for having me on. It's always fun to chat with someone who is super passionate about the club and knows their stuff. So it's always really good.
Yeah, hopefully I'll talk to you before episode 200. That would be good. But we'll do this again.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds like a plan.
And that does it for this episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Special thanks this week goes out to Matt Beling. You can get in touch with him on Twitter at WeSouthampton. Matt, it's been almost 3 years since I asked you to help me out with the logo for the show. And since then, it's been a fantastic journey, both for you and I, both personally and professionally. And I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done, for your help with Photoshop and just ideas for the show. Thank you so much for everything. If you'd like to get in touch with Matt on Twitter, you can do that at WeSouthampton. The page is on hiatus, but Matt is still really good at what he does, and I can't thank him enough, as I said before. So if you enjoyed that and you want to get in touch with us on the show, you can do that. We are at SFCDELL_IVERY on Twitter and Instagram, and we're at Facebook.com/SFC Delivery. There is no underscore in the Facebook address. You can get links to all that and subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Acast, Google Play, or wherever you listen to podcasts. There are a lot of links at southamptondelivery.com. Drop by, sign up for the newsletter, subscribe to the show. Let us know what you think. Any suggestions are much appreciated. The show would not be possible without you as listeners. You guys make the show great. Your questions that came in this week and each and every week do make the show a lot more interesting, so continue to send those in. Our partner page is the Southampton page, and they make the show possible for you to listen to because they spread it around. Most of you probably wouldn't know about it if it wasn't for them. So follow them at Southampton page on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. As I've said since day one, the logo is designed by Matt Beling. You heard from him here. And all music for the show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the end of show credits that you're listening to right now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear. And lastly, a shout out to all the patrons of the show. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me, and it allows the show to continue so everybody else can listen for free. Hopefully we'll have a bonus episode for you a little bit later this week if everything works out the way it should. So with all that said, The big one is tonight. We will be back next week with a regular episode. And until then, remember, together, we march on.
So I don't know what that student was going to do, but it was pretty scary for everybody involved because she was pretty pissed. But
well, if you skimp out on a group project, you've got it coming, haven't you? So.